After spending the last few months trying to get into the game dev industry, I've come to appreciate the thrill of the hunt. Even so, I don't have the qualifications to become a game programmer, because to become a game programmer, you need to have at least 2 years experience as a game programmer. So if I need to become a game programmer like I've always wanted to, then become a game programmer I shall. Since companies won't let me work on their games, I'm going to start working on my own. I started by making space for the project in between working my job, applying for jobs, and crying myself to sleep. So for the past 2 months, I've been coming home from my food service job and programming into a comatose stupor. Only after getting some distance from the project during a small vacation did I realize, it might actually be a good idea to log everything I've been doing. I mean, I've written a lot of stuff down, but making something a little more palatable might actually make me want to go through it every once in a while. So this is my all-inclusive, partially retroactive, high-octane devlog series. I didn't want to make something super technical because I honestly thought it would be much more fun to do this, but if anyone's interested in an actual technical breakdown of my project and like different components that went into doing what I've been doing, then leave a comment and I'll see what I can do. The first thing I needed to do was come up with a premise and get the game design figured out. I've settled on doing a wizard game because, as cliche as these types of games are, they tickle my brain. But what exactly could I make within this flavor? Well, if you've checked on Steam anytime in the past years, from Magicka to Wizard with a Gun, the opportunities are literally endless. I was kind of raised on FPSs and roguelikes, so I thought meshing the two would be a really fun idea, and that's kind of the direction I decided to take the project. So I've got the core concept, wizard roguelike FPS. This isn't really as much as I thought, and it's kind of overdone, and damn, I really didn't think this through. But that's okay. I can spice it up with some. So I added an elemental system. I decided I wanted the players to be able to choose multiple characters, and those characters could have their own special affinity that all their abilities kind of base on. I wanted to have the elements interact with people in the world, kind of like Breath of the Wild. And if it's a roguelike, I guess I could come up with some sort of dungeon generation so that levels are more replayable. I'll add boss fights and power-ups, and I'm starting to realize there's some issues with my premise. If I want the elements to interact with each other and the player, they need to do more than just use their character's elemental ability. You can't just have fire have its own little special interactions and that be kind of all of the player's agency. They need to access a couple at least, and the best way to do that would be multiplayer, but I don't know anything about making multiplayer, and the more I plan on the scope, the more it keeps rising. The voices tell me that, slime guy. Okay, so I took a few months off because the scope I set was kind of insane. Got a few things done here or there, but altogether nothing super interesting, albeit productive. Figuring out the scope of the project has made me understand the monumental path ahead. But it's clear that I need to make something because this is what I want to do with my life. And since I'm still not a game dev, I have to do game dev my way. So I finished up the documentation and got to work. This is probably the meat of what I've been doing with my free time. What you need probably most importantly in any type of game, or at least most types of games, is a player character, something you can control that can sort of interact with the world how you want and do the things you want it to do. So I got to work on that first. I started by setting up an input system. Each of the characters have their own little movement quirks, like the Pyromancer, or Pyro, basically gets a jetpack. I'm deciding for now that zero velocity handling is more fun for how I want the movement to feel. Physics are very fun, but so is literally perfect air control. I then set up a HUD and stat system that manages and displays health and mana, yada yada, boom boom, ability system. I've decided that to do an ability system, why not add some hero shooter mechanics, because they're fun. So each character gets an M1 ability, M2 ability, movement ability, and ultimate. I made it myself, and I'm quite proud because it's versatile enough for me to do just about anything I can think of, and the logic is very abstract. I think I could use it for other projects in the future if I wanted to. But what do I put for these guys' abilities? Well, I decided for now to just work on one character, add more as development progresses, because there's a lot of different unique things that I want to go into each different hero, but for now I'll introduce you to Pyro. To get the final bits of setup put in, I added a placeholder model, set up like half of the animations for now, and also added a slight mana regen for Pyro because I wanted the jetpack to use mana, but I don't want the player getting stuck in a horde of enemies unless they messed up. With all that in place, I could get to working on the actual abilities. Since this is a shooter, I decided to make the M1 not cost mana, but everything else is fair game. Pyro's M1 is a pretty basic firebolt that explodes for AoE, her M2 makes a little firewall that burns and also might heal her for a bit later on. I'm really sure, still thinking that one through, but Pyro doesn't really get a movement ability because her movement ability is the jetpack, which I kind of see more of as a passive, but I think that it'd be more interesting for her to not have any horizontal mobility. And then finally, her ultimate is a big explosion of heat that does large damage around her. She can buffer you out with her jetpack, but she can't really outrun anything, so her only option in a tight situation is to clear house. To fit the admittedly basic idea of fire being very, very strong, I added a burn mechanic to all fire sources. It does % max health damage over time. Very, very scary. Ooh. With the character defined, I made the abilities, and after a lot of trial and error, I've got just about everything working at some rudimentary level. The next logical step from being able to shoot is actually just having things that you can shoot, so I started working on the enemies next. First off, I grabbed some models and animations off the asset store in Mixamo, then I borrowed Unity's pathfinding system because I'm afraid of A-star. I threw in the A-star system with a few possible states, and I had the perfect zombie. Then I added the brains, and the brains are pretty good. I'm so proud of my little test slime. He can patrol his turf and chase me down and smack me with his massive 5 head. It's great. And then I thought, why not add a ranged guy while I'm at it? So I borrowed an older iteration of the firebolt I used earlier for Pyro and made a basic projectile, and boom, ranged guy. Just like that, I had my 2 little imperfect perfections to blast full of magic.
I can't stop winning!
Now that I have these little guys working, I just need a way to make them actually spawn within the game loop, so I made a very basic system that spawns them in waves. It scales up numbers as the wave count goes up, and I think this should work for testing out stuff right now. I also added a little room that you can spawn them in, and it's kind of like its own little infinite stage, and I can't help but feel that some kind of game loop is coming together. This is probably the most tedious and boring part. I'm just going to leave it at I mostly added placeholders for everything and made a few HUD icons. Oh, and I added some basic settings and pause, though they have a few... I'm probably forgetting to mention a lot of things, but now that I've set up the basics, I need to work in some semblance of a game loop so you can actually get in and start testing it and stuff. So I built a basic starter map, fighting room as mentioned previously, and linked everything together. There's a lot of managers tying everything into a neat little bow so that everything works for the most part. And now I'm actually starting to get really happy with how everything's meshing together. When I started the project, I didn't really see everything getting this far, but I can see that everything kind of works. Sorta. With everything kind of working together into some type of prototype, or at least starting to get there, I thought I might work on something a little more difficult. So I started on dungeon generation. I don't really see it being integrated for a while, but I started working on level generation because I know it'll be tricky. Fortunately, I have experience with something called wave function collapse, so I made that. And for some reason it crashes 1 out of 5 times, but we're not going to talk about that. Once I had a map that spawned rooms, I found my first hurdle. Wave function collapse works fine for generating a map, but it does not generate continuous paths well. The issue here is that I really wanted to use it because I like the solution a lot for what I had in mind. Other solutions would work fine, but I wanted to make some rooms kind of like Enter the Gungeon, where each room on the map was personalized and customizable but slotted together nicely. To make what I wanted work with my desired implementation, I needed to somehow fix the wave function collapse so that it added a sort of pathing automatically. I won't get into the nitty-gritty, but I'm in the process of running A star from the starting room to the boss room just to create a for sure path through the level with some randomness to taste. I've got A star implemented, which is pretty exciting because, as you know, I said earlier, I was genuinely kind of scared to figure out how it worked, but everything seems to be working fine. And now I just need to integrate it to properly constrain my original function. More on this in the next devlog. With this side quest at least started, I feel comfortable enough showing what I've done all together. Obviously, these are all placeholder assets and pre-prototyped mechanics, but I thought it would be nice to show off what I've done so far. So here is the game loop as things stand, with no sound because I have not fucked with that yet. I don't want to talk about it. As you can see, you have a start menu spawning you into the overworld after choosing a character. There's a few assets placed around and a mountainous terrain that just sort of generally surrounds everything. You can fall down the chute to get to the infinite mode room. It just basically spawns waves COD style that spawn more enemies as the wave count increases. You can use all of Pyro's abilities to attack them, and they even have hit markers. And they kind of only come out once you actually, activate the thing. I don't think I actually mentioned the interaction system that I put in, but yeah, that's there too. And this is generally what I have so far. There's a bunch of smaller things I probably forgot to mention, but I'm pretty happy with the progress I've made so far. I'm probably going to be working on this project for a while now, so if you have any recommendations, feel free to drop a comment. Also, I checked my analytics to see how many viewers are subscribed, and it started speaking ancient Akkadian or something, so maybe help me out so I don't have to hire a translator. Thanks.